Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Casper and today we talk about a machine gun that was kept secret in the USSR for about 30 years. What new technologies did the Soviet engineers employ? And the main thing, why was it to replace the RPK machine gun, but that never happened? So, the Russians designed the AK-74 rifle and the RPK-74 machine gun to replace the old AKM and RPK in 1974. You think they didn't just relax and made factories produce those weapons for the next 20-30 years? No, that would be too easy. They began creating a substitute for the RPK-74 right away. So, in 1973, two projects were launched in the USSR, the Plemiannik and the Poplin. The main goal of these projects was to create the new LMG. It should have been the same 545x39mm caliber as the RPK-74 machine gun, but it should have been 1.52 times more effective at 400 meters range. Also, the Russian military disliked the low fire density of the RPK-74 machine gun. This was due to the abandonment of the machine gun's belt feed in favor of the use of box and drum magazines, so that unification with the Kalashnikov rifle would be even higher, saving more money. To create a machine gun according to the new requirements was not the easiest task, so it was entrusted the most legendary Russian designers. The new machine gun was made by Dragunov, creator of the famous Dragunov SVD sniper rifle, Kalashnikov, Nesterov and Alexandrov. As a result, in 1947 the first prototype of the new machine gun was created under the name PU, which stands for Machine Gun with Unified Feed. This was the main asset of the new machine gun. Both the machine gun belt and box magazines from a Kalashnikov rifle could be used with it. The idea was to combine the two types of machine gun loading, since each of these methods had its advantages and disadvantages. That way the soldiers could choose how to load it themselves, based on the combat tasks they were facing. Unfortunately, this version of the machine gun was a failure and required many modifications. The PU did not work well with the machine gun belt, and as Soviet gunsmiths themselves wrote, the PU gun was afraid of water, meaning that it would stop working after contact with water. But as the engineers pointed out in their reports, the main thing we understood is that the combined ammunition feeding system is fundamentally possible and can be implemented in the future. The PU machine gun itself was not to be abandoned, but was awaiting a second phase from 1974 to 1976. During this period, it received the code name PU-1. Outwardly, the PU and PU-1 machine gun versions were almost the same, but the Soviet designers managed to achieve the main thing. The weapon began to work normally under conditions of dirt, water, and in general became more reliable. The third stage followed. From 1976 to 1977, the machine gun was also further refined, and then it was called the PU-2. However, it was already quite different from the previous versions of the weapon. We can notice that the PU and PU-1 are more similar to the RPK, while the new PU-2 is more similar to the Kalashnikov PK machine gun. The reason is that in the first two versions of the machine gun, the engineers assumed that box magazines would be its main firing mode, and the machine gun belt would be an additional mode. In the new PU-2, it was the machine gun belt that became the main mode of fire. However, the new PU-2 turned out to be too complex, and therefore lost its reliability. In the first stage it was called the PU-21. The PU-21 machine gun was significantly simplified. During the tests, the PU-21 outperformed the RPK-74 machine gun in terms of efficiency of fire and fire density, as was required of it. At the same time, it showed the same high reliability as the Kalashnikov machine gun. The new machine gun is heavier than the RPK-74, but not by much at all. The PU-21 weighs 5.7 kilograms, or 13 pounds, while the RPK-74 weighs 5 kilograms, or about 11 pounds. By comparison, the PKM machine gun weighs 7.5 kilograms, or 16.5 pounds. In the end, the Soviets did manage to make an excellent weapon that should have filled the gap between the lightweight Kalashnikov rifle and a much heavier PK machine gun. Two new types of magazines were created for the PU-21 as part of the PMB-3 project. Designers Sharabokov, Kamzolov and Paranin made a drum magazine M30 and a pen magazine M100. The M30 magazine was simply an updated version of the old drum magazine from the RPK. It had a plastic body instead of a metal one, making it lighter, easier to manufacture, but just as sturdy. The second magazine of the M100 was a pen magazine, and the design inside it was much like the one on the Lewis machine gun, where the cartridges move upward in a spiral. This magazine held 100 rounds and proved even more convenient than the drum magazine. But the Soviet generals decided otherwise. In their opinion, it was too complicated a machine gun in terms of different types of ammunition feeding. There were also arguments that a machine gunner had to carry 8 magazines of 45 rounds each as it was, and they could not manage some more boxes of machine gun ammunition. At the same time, with the creation of the new Pu-21, Soviet engineers tried another project. What if they did not create a new machine gun, but simply made an entirely new magazine for the old one? So, the SPU, which stands for Removable Feeder, was developed for the RPK-74. It all looks as if the box from the PK machine gun was crossed with the magazine from the Kalashnikov rifle. How does it work? In a conventional machine gun, the cartridges from the belt go straight into the receiver. In the SPU, the cartridges just come out of the belt, while still inside the magazine, and fall into the bottom of the box magazine. In other words, the belt did not go inside the rifle, it moved only inside the SPU device itself. The mechanism was driven by a lever put on the AK-RPK charging handle. A very interesting device. Funny thing is that just a couple of years after the Pu-21 was abandoned in the USSR, Belgium introduced the FN Minimi machine gun, which is literally built on the same concept – low pulse ammunition and combined feed. And as we know, less than 10 years later, the United States Army will have this very machine gun, designated the M249. Not to say that magazine feeding in the M249 is anything in demand, but a lightweight machine gun with high fire density is literally what the Soviet Army lacked. At least they should have started upgrading the old Degtярев RPD, which would have done an excellent job. Today Russia is testing the Kord 545 machine gun, the second name of which is the Tokar 2. It is also based on the combined feed principle and fires light 545x39mm cartridges. Who would have thought? That's all for today. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe to the channel. See you next week.